Hello and welcome to the RZNGMEN show, and I'm your host Craig Carlisle. And in studio today, I'm blessed, honored, and I'm excited. I'm just excited about, if nothing else, Andrew Hopkins is in the studio with me. Andrew, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Excited to be here.
Well, you know what? So Andrew Hopkins is a great person. He's a worship leader. He's a father. He's a husband. I don't know what else to say that you are other than you're a really great person, because there's a lot of people out there that are ministering right now, but it is easy to say, oh, when you see them on the platform ministering, they're one way. But I could say when I see you out talking to people, walking around the parking lot, just being you, it's the same guy. And I think that's awesome. So as you get to know Andrew, supporting his ministry, know this guy is for real.
Come on.
How did you get started in ministry?
Well, if I condense the story a little bit, I was a skateboarder for a long time. I was sponsored going for it, and then I encountered Jesus. I just started going to youth group, and literally his presence would come on me. I didn't understand what was happening, but I just start crying in church, and a lot of things happened. A couple of my friends wanted to commit suicide, and so it shocked me into going like, okay, if God's real, I need to find out. Got in a car accident, different things. And so when I finally gave my heart to Jesus, about 6 months after that, the youth pastor comes up to me and says, hey, you sing and play guitar? We would like you to be our next worship leader. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I was really kind of unprepared.
Wow.
And it was a sink or swim kind of a moment. Like, all right, we're throwing you in. And apparently it worked, because I'm still doing it.
Well, skating must be the thing, because I know at our church, James Franz was a skater.
Totally, yeah.
And I'm thinking, is that like the thing? Do you see Jesus when you're soaring through the air and he flips, or what?
I mean, it's when I look at it now, especially being a dad, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazier than I thought. Like, what was I doing? But when you're in it, you're like, yeah, I'm a man. Like, I'm doing hard things. I'm breaking stuff, whatever. But it was just a crazy season, and I thank God for it. But it brought me to around the people that actually brought me to the Lord. So.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, when you were skating, was that a time when you thought you're gonna go pro? And what turned you from the skate life to God life?
Yeah, I wanted to. I mean, we would watch the skate videos and watch the pros do all the stuff. So we'd be like, this is our dream. We're doing it. So as kids, we would have little video cameras and we go film and all that. And,
wow.
And we'd go all over the place. I've probably been in every high school in Southern California. We just jump the fence and just go skate.
Wow.
But, it was just those shocking moments, like I said, two of my best friends that were in my skateboarding crew, one on Friday night, one on the Saturday night directly after that, wanted to kill themselves.
Wow.
Because of some crazy circumstances at home. And so that shocked me. And then also I got in a car accident. Basically, I was going about 70 miles an hour, slammed on my brakes on the freeway, smashing the back of a Suburban. But my car was a 83 Toyota Corolla hatchback.
Ouch.
So that's not really competition for that Suburban.
No, sir.
So it shocked me. I mean, I came out actually fine, but it was like a sign to me to say like, okay, God spared my life. I need to find out if he's real. It was just kind of a weird way to say it, but.
Did you see Jesus at that moment?
Well, dude, I'm not gonna lie. When I hit that car, like, I had a crazy moment. I literally pinched my cheek to make sure I was still alive, because that's what I seen them do in the TV.
Wow, that's what I'm talking about. It was funny,
man. And what had happened was, there was a guy, I was working at Taco Bell, and about a week and a half before, a guy came in to me, started preaching to me about the rapture, and I needed Jesus and all this stuff.
Wow.
So then a week and a half later, I get in the car accident. So I'm like, this is not coincidence. Like, God's trying to get my attention.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, your project, tell me about that project you've got. I've been listening to some of the tracks in advance. Oh,
yeah, man.
awesome.
It's so exciting. It's a dream that has been in my heart for a long time. I've done a couple albums with my church, but this is the first one that I've done as a solo project. So that's like, it's something really special in my heart, and a lot of these songs just have literally come out of moments in ministry. Pretty much all of them have had a moment in ministry where they would either come out spontaneously while I was leading worship for what God was saying to the people at that time.
Sure.
Or it was just, hey man, this is a sermon that, like, I'm listening to a sermon, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, dude, my friend turns around and says, Andrew, that's a song. And I'm like, all right. So I went home and picked up my guitar and wrote a song, but it just songs in my heart that as a minister, I'm just always saying like, God, how can I see breakthrough happen? How can we see people encounter Jesus and his love and his power? Wow. So I don't really want to write songs just for songs. I want to write songs that help people experience God. And so that's where it's coming out of. And it's a crazy journey of how, raising all the money and all that stuff had come, So I don't know if you want to tell me that. I could tell you the whole story.
No, please. I want people to understand, because it's not everyone every day who can actually make an album, right? So how did you do it? I mean, how did you get there? It had to have been a crazy walk of faith.
Yeah. So I had a man of God give me a word. He comes up to me as he's speaking at a meeting we were at. He takes off his Nixon watch and says, and he gives it to me, and he says, the Lord says, Andrew, now's the time to do your album. And so I'm like, come on, praise God. And then Nixon comes from the same word as Nike, and Nike's just do it. Yeah. So he said, the Lord just said, just do it. And so I'm like, honestly, I was excited, but then at the same time, I just sat on the word for like a month and didn't do anything.
Wow.
And then literally within the next span of time, 3 other people gave me the exact same word that didn't know. They were like, otherwise did not know that I already got a word. So 3 other people said, now's the time, now's the time, now's the time. So I'm like, okay, Lord, I get the point. I'm going to do it. So I had to just go with what I had now instead of wait until I had this perfect producer that, whatever. When I already knew some producers, I was just like, is this what we should do? Like, it kind of took all the questioning out, because God said now. Yeah. And it's different. And like, you can't just wait until something gets, all perfect and the ducks are in a row.
Sure.
So I put out on social media, I put a budget together, and I said, I need about $21,000 to do this. Yeah. And I also prayed, I was like, Lord, if you want me to do this, you also got to pay for it. Yeah. Because if it's God's will, it's God's bill.
Of course.
I don't have $21,000, but he does. Yeah. He's got a whole lot more.
Oh, yeah.
And so we put it out there, and literally within 5 weeks, all the money came in.
That's awesome.
I mean, I had started with $3,500 because I have a couple supporters that were just like, we want to bless you.
Sure.
But that's still a big chunk of money in 5 weeks that I had no idea where it was going to come from.
Sure.
And then we started the process, and here we are.
So what was the first song that you decided to record?
The first one was Wave After Wave. So it was like it's kind of like the one song that I think I'm known for, at least at this moment.
I love that one. I mean, I like them all, but that's the one, like you said, I was introduced to before, because you were worshiping with that at church.
Exactly, yeah. So we had been using that song for a little while. This is a new version that we did, but there's something about it. It was written for revival, out of a moment in the presence of God and worship. Sure. And I was kind of actually studying about the islands of the Hebrides, which is over by the UK, and they had a crazy youth revival. These 2 elderly ladies, one was blind and one was, I forget, another ailment. Like, they didn't really, they just would just pray, and it wasn't like the most ideal circumstance, like, Sure. And they prayed and prayed and prayed that God would pour out his spirit on the young people.
Wow.
And one of the nights, the really long story short is, one of the nights they go to the church, and at midnight, because they heard commotion, and so they're like, what's going on? They went to the church at midnight. 600 young people are out in the front yard of the church just like wanting to seek God. Wow. And it turned into full-blown revival over there, and there were so many people saved in these islands that, like, if you didn't want to be saved, like, it's either you stay and get saved or you move away.
Wow.
Like, that's how crazy it was. So I'm like, I want to write about that, And so that's part of what inspired that song. So that's what it's like in my heart. I'm like, come on, Lord, like, release the waves of revival, not just a little trickle here, but a big, huge wave.
Now, when you see people ministering and going in, when you sing that, for the first time, 15th time, I'm sure you've probably sung it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Where does that take you? Is it all every single time?
I mean, there's something about it. And this is the thing, like you're saying, like, we sing it a bunch, and I sing it a lot, especially in the last 2 years.
Sure.
I've sung it hundreds probably of times in all kinds of services. But it really hasn't gotten old, and
awesome.
It's crazy to me that I would think it would, and it probably should. But then, like, I will give it a break here and there.
Sure.
But man, I love seeing people encounter just the passion and it's like, because the chorus says, "As we wait for you, our hearts are open," but then the bridge says, "He's pouring out like wave after wave." So it's the tension of, we're waiting and our hearts are open in the waiting, because sometimes the waiting can make you want to close your heart.
Yeah, waiting sucks. I ain't gonna lie. Waiting sucks. I ain't gonna lie.
But the tension of, we're waiting and our hearts are open for this great move of God, but then the reality is, he actually is already doing something.
Yeah.
And so to live in that tension, but to also believe that he is doing something, whether we see it or not. I love to see people just it's like people can catch that wave after wave after wave, and you see the whole room just waves and waves. And I feel like people are literally just lighting up with the goodness of God every time we do that. So
well, it's awesome because with you being a worship leader, you sing a lot of other people's music.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes where we may sing other people's music more so than our own stuff. You think, well, they probably like that better, so I'll give a little bit more passion there.
Yeah.
But I don't see that when you worship. When you worship, every single song is exactly what it's supposed to be with the appropriate amount of passion. I wouldn't have known unless you told me for the first time I saw you that Wave After Wave wasn't your song or somebody else's song, because you sing it with the same amount of going for God and going for it. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how do you, as you're moving forward and you see people singing your music, Bethel's music, you name it's music, and they're worshiping to it, what would you recommend to them when they get to Wave After Wave?
As far as like what their disposition would be? Man, honestly, it's a song of declaration. It's a song of faith. And really, I mean, when you're singing verses like that, you know, he heals every sickness and he sets the captives free and God come reign on our city. I think we got to sing it from a position of authority and a position of faith, just saying like, God, you know, yes, our hearts are open. We're believing for this, but at the same time, we just declare it, you know, like Mark 11, he says, just whatever things that you ask, just believe that you receive it and you have whatever you say. And there's something about that declaration, because the word of the Lord has so much power in it. And literally, I'm really just singing scriptures the whole time and just declaring what God does and what he will do and is doing. And when we do that in a room, it changes the whole atmosphere. And so we got to come with that kind of faith that I'm not just singing a song, I'm literally changing an atmosphere through the power of what I'm saying and singing to the Lord. So
that's incredible. As you looked at your project, it's 8 songs. When did you know that it should have only been these 8, or did you have others that you decided, no, I'm not going to go there? Or did the Lord say, you know what, this is what it's going to be, and stop right now?
Yeah, we have. So when I submitted songs to the producer, we had a few other ones on the table. But I just felt like as a worship leader, I'm looking for a flow. I'm looking for like what flows together. What carries a theme. Because I didn't want it to be like, you know, here's this crazy revival anthem, and then here's like a totally like, I don't know. I don't want to change the story too crazy, you know, like. And it feels like someone's learned how to drive stick shift, you know, and you're like, you're getting jerked around, you know, like I don't want to do that to people. And so anyway, we just found out, okay, these are the ones that fit the best. And really, I just felt from the Lord, like, these are the ones, man.
We're actually going to go into here Wave After Wave. So up next, you're going to hear Andrew Hopkins and Wave After Wave. We'll be right back.
You pour out your spirit in the midst of a dry and thirsty land. You give of your mercy with a mighty outstretched hand, and waves of your power come crashing over us. You clothe us with fire, and you purify our hearts as we wait for you. Our hearts are open, Lord, as we wait for you, Lord. As we wait for you, our hearts are open, Lord, as we wait for you, Lord. You give of your fullness, so full of grace and truth. You rescue the sinner, the lost are found in you. You heal every sickness, and you set the captives free. Come and reign on our city, a move God we long to see. As we wait for you, our hearts are open, Lord, as we wait for you, Lord. As we wait for you, our hearts are open, Lord, as we wait for you, Lord. As we wait
Man, I like that song. Andrew, take us through your process. What does the Lord give you, and how does he speak to you, and how does the Holy Spirit really lead you through, writing and worshiping and preparing to either bring the word or sing the word?
Yeah, honestly, it comes from a lot of meditation, and it comes from a lot of just quieting my soul, I guess, and just like being still enough to hear, but at the same time moving. So it's a weird tension, but Paul says to pray without ceasing at the end of 1 Thessalonians. And I found out that prayer isn't just a closet space that you have. Yeah. It's actually a consistent communion with God anywhere, everywhere you go. Jesus told the woman at the well, it's not about worshiping on this mountain or this mountain. Yeah. He said you'll worship in spirit and truth. So he's changing the whole dynamic, because actually the reality is we are the temples of God. So you can be but you really are a communication center for God everywhere you go. Wow. And so I try to do that everywhere I'm going. And I live with, and to put it in a real simple verse, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, but it says, in all your ways, acknowledge him and he'll direct your paths. Literally in Hebrew, it's yada for acknowledge. Yeah. And it means to know intimately, know by experience. And so I literally just carry my relationship with God with me in any and every situation. So whether I'm hanging out in an actual ministry setting, sure, or I'm hanging out with my kids, or we're watching TV, or watching whatever it is, and my wife and I are on a date night or whatever, sure, I'm always conscious that God's with me. I'm always conscious of how am I going to live my life in acknowledgement of his presence. Sure. And out of that flows all kinds of leadings, Sure. But I don't.
No, that's perfect, because as men, we have a tendency to be one way at work. Yeah. Right? One way at home, one way with our wives, one way with the kids. And what you've just explained, it's you. Yeah. Because you're seeking God in everything that you do. How do we as men do that better? Because we're always taught to be the rough guy, right? And not feeling, tell the kids to go sit down somewhere. What do you recommend to the guys that are living that way? How do we become better? Yeah, I mean, I think it takes intentionality. Yeah. But it's kind of like, say for you're learning a new language, and if I'm learning Spanish, I'm like learning how to conjugate verbs, and I'm like, tengo, tenemos, blah blah blah, and I have to think through the conjugation of the verb. Sure. But after a while, it just becomes natural, and I think that. So and I don't really speak the greatest Spanish, so it wouldn't be the best example for me, but the idea still remains that after a while, you just don't think, you just do. Yeah. Because you had been intentional about something for a certain period of time, that it becomes subconscious, that I'm constantly, and it's been a long time, intentionally doing this. So it's just, I'm always aware of God. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to have those seasons of intentionality. Sure. And there's also times for me where it was the word, man. I would spend time in the secret place, meditating on the word, memorizing the word. Yeah. Even, when I say meditate, I don't just mean thinking, it's even saying too. Sure. And then times of just worship where I'm literally in my car, just driving alone. You got a little bit of time. Sure. Let's just worship God and forget all the cares of the day and just be in his presence. And there's something about just being with him that rubs off on you. Yeah. So, I mean, it's intentionality is the biggest thing. How did you even come up with the title of the album? Send Out Your Roar. Yeah. Okay, it's actually a crazy story. Okay. So I was in a meeting. My friend Jeremy Nelson is a prophetic minister, and he calls me out, and he says, hey, I see 6 years ago, I see the Lion of Judah around you. And I see 6 years ago that you had some kind of encounter with the Lion of Judah, and God's going to use this for your album or something like this. And so he's like, what happened 6 years ago? And I'm like, dude, that's when I wrote the song about the Lion of Judah. I have a song on the album called Fighting For Us, which is where Send Out Your Roar came from. Wow. And I wrote it 6 years ago, and it was about the Lion of Judah. And it was this whole experience that 6 years ago I had. This is kind of funny, but I watched Chronicles of Narnia, and there's this scene on the Prince Caspian one where little Lucy has a little dagger, but then Aslan comes behind her, and it's almost like she thinks she's like telling these enemies what's up, but then behind her Aslan roars, and all the enemies get destroyed. And that picture stuck inside of my heart so much that I was like, wow, this is what God does for us. So I wrote a song about it, and then he prophesies and says, I see something about the Lion of Judah 6 years ago, this whole deal. So I'm like, wow, okay.
Because if I did the title, I was thinking like God of the Breakthrough or the Breaker, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Because I love that. That's what I was. That was my go-to.
Yeah.
But then when I got that word, and he didn't know. I didn't know him 6 years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, like, all right, the Lord's on this. I didn't want to take it back to Wave After Wave because we had already released that.
Sure.
So now we're going forward into the Roar, and so
Yeah, because when I saw the title, I was like, oh man, okay. That came from someplace else. I figured it was, it had to be a story like that, because I know when Pastor Jeremy he ministered before, and I heard Wave After Wave, you were ministering at Summit Church at that time. Yeah. And when you sang Wave After Wave, and Pastor had talked about open heaven over that region, San Diego, and I was like, man, it just seemed like they went right together.
It's like it would have fit perfect, and I was going that route.
Yeah.
But then the prophetic word came. I mean, that's pretty specific. 6 years ago, he's like giving me a date, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'll do that, you know. And then this is crazy. Chris Tallman literally just came out with an album called Holy Roar.
No.
Like just a week or two ago.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, all right, God's doing something with the Roar.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, because when I think about listening to the album, I sit back and like, okay, I know I like this song. I know I like that song. When you're ready to meditate on just sit back and listen to music, what are you listening to? What's off your album are you looking to worship? And
on my album?
Yeah.
Man, I mean, I literally am a fan of it all. But, you know, some of the songs that are, you know, really ministering to me is there's a song called Firestorm that's on there. Okay. That came out of these revival meetings that we're doing called the Fire and Glory Outpouring. Yeah. And Jeremy, again, had a vision. This is a couple of years ago. He saw this whirlwind come out of heaven and Jesus come into the room, and as the worship was going up, he was like wafting himself with the worship. Like he was just so enjoying it. Wow. And then he saw Jesus like flick off his like kingly robe into the room and then disappeared. And he felt like that the emphasis for these meetings would be the king of the kingdom. And that it's about the worship, and God moves in the worship. He, you know, Psalm 22:3 says he inhabits the praise of his people. And so there's something about his throne coming in when we lift him up. Sure. And then the kingdom power is demonstrated, and we've seen all kinds of stuff. So Ezekiel chapter 1 actually describes almost the same thing that he saw. Sure. He sees this whirlwind come out, there's fire in it and all of it. And you look at the end of the chapter, it's almost like he sees a man of fire sitting on a throne. It's the portable throne of God. And it's really reminiscent of Revelation 4 and 5. And you see all these crazy mystical things. So I wrote a song about that. And literally the first time my producer sent it to me, like the full version, sure. I was crying and weeping in my truck just listening to it. Like it was on replay. Wow. Because I felt like I was getting taken to heaven every time I was listening to it. Wow. It was so much presence of God and so much of depth in who he is and his throne and all these amazing, you know, you look at it, it's super mystical, sure. But when you're in the presence of it, it begins to make sense. I don't even know how to explain that, but so that one's ministering to me a lot because I feel like I'm with God in his throne room when I listen to it.
We're going to listen to that next. Set the song up again for us as we go into the next break.
Firestorm, man. It's the one. It's going to take you to the throne room, and the fire of God is going to touch you. So
I can see the firestorm all around, filling up this place. The host of heaven here and now. We're lifting up your praise. To the King of the kingdom we bow down. You're high and lifted up. You're high and lifted up. I can see the firestorm all around, filling up this place. The host of heaven here and now. We're lifting up your praise. To the King of the kingdom we bow down. You're high and lifted up. You're high and lifted up. You are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory. Jesus, you are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory. Yeah. I can feel the winds of heaven blowing. It's time for seasons change. The fiery love of the Father. is setting us ablaze. Flashes of lightning and the rumbling is shaking up this place. Is shaking up this place. You are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory. Jesus, you are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory. Yeah, Jesus, you are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory. Oh, Jesus, you are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory. Your fire goes before you and consumes enemies. And all around I look, I see the victory. Your fire, fire is burning up in me. Your fire, fire, consuming enemies. Your fire goes before you and consumes enemies. And all around I look, I see the victory. Your fire, fire is burning up in me. Your fire, fire, consuming enemies. Your fire, fire is burning up in me. Your fire, Lord, consuming the enemies. Yeah. Your fire, fire is burning up in me. Your fire, fire, consuming enemies. Your fire, fire is burning up in me. Your fire, fire, consuming enemies. You are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory. Jesus, you are holy, 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 Lord of glory, glory, glory.
And we're back to the Raising Men show. Man, I tell you, Andrew, I don't know what to tell you. This is amazing.
Come on.
I just, if you don't like Andrew Hopkins and his music, I don't know what's wrong with you. We have to have you seek counseling at your church or something. And for those that are listening, we are actually giving away 10 copies of his CD. So just for this program, you need to make sure that you send me on social media, send your information in, and I'll direct message me on Instagram or Facebook, and we'll send out copies of the first 10 people that send them in. And Andrew will be signing all of those copies. And Andrew, for those who want to come and participate, your EP release party is what day, which is in our case here is going to be tomorrow, Wednesday, at Summit Church. Give them the address and let's tell us about that day and how can we support you.
Yeah, we'll be there. Doors will open at 6:30, and then we'll start at 7-ish.
Got it.
I feel like it's gonna get crazy packed out. So I'm a little nervous. Like we need an overflow room, you know.
Well, I'm gonna tell people. So Summit Church in San Marcos, California.
Yes.
And please make sure you give me the address on air.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be in the social media feed as well. But Summit Church seats only about 250, maybe 300.
Yeah, max 300 because that's gonna be like the packing it out, fire codes might be violated. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to see, I call him Bishop Hopkins
Come on.
in San Marcos at the release party. It's one of a lifetime. Well, it's not once in a lifetime, but it may be once for some of us. We may not see the next one because the Lord come and take us today. We might not make it to tomorrow. So we need to come tomorrow, Wednesday night, Summit Church in San Marcos, and support Andrew Hopkins and his ministry.
Yeah, and it's the address is 292 East Barham Drive, San Marcos, California 92078.
Awesome.
Yeah, but we'll be doing all the songs in a live setting, so it'll be a little different than the album because we're gonna get in the flow.
Hey.
And then we'll be sharing. I'll actually share a little bit of the heart of that, a little bit of the send out your roar.
Yeah.
And actually a specific word that I feel like God gave me for the night about building walls and tearing walls down.
Sure.
And both are very important.
Sure.
And it's kind of funny because November 6th is election day, and I'll talk about building a wall, but like we ain't talking about
Mexico,
that. We ain't talking about that wall. We're talking about some other healthy walls. All right. I mean, however you think about it. Anyway, let's move on.
I wanted to ask you about that word, but we can't because you're going to give it tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. And so, but as you're going through, if the Lord gives you a word for some of the listeners, feel free because you're leading out right now in worship. You're a next generation worship leader. Mm-hmm. There's kids coming behind you who want to be worship leaders. What do you tell them about developing and hearing God and becoming worship leaders and not being discouraged? Because I'm sure it didn't go perfect the first time you stepped out.
Oh yeah.
And done it. What do you say to someone who wants to be a worship leader, who just wants to serve God through their music?
Yeah, honestly, the biggest thing for me, and I'm calling it stewarding the flame.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of an obscure passage in Leviticus chapter 6 where the pages are still stuck together, if they use a book, actually. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it talks about the burnt offering, and the burnt offering is basically representing of surrender to the Lord.
Okay.
It's a full dedication to God.
Sure.
And it says this, that the fire on the altar should never go out. It should be continuously burning. But the priest had to actually steward the flame. He had to actually, it was his responsibility to keep the fire burning, basically. Wow. And man, I think honestly, one of the biggest things is to continue to live a life of surrender.
Sure.
To continue to stay in the Word, continue to worship on your own, to pray on your own.
Sure.
Bottom line, be a friend with God, because that's really what worship leading is. I've found out, especially over the last, 15 plus years of leading worship,
sure,
that if I was faithful to steward my own flame
sure,
with my relationship with the Lord, then God will take care of all the other stuff. And man, I believe that there's equipping out there, there's schools and all, definitely, especially now, there's like so many online worship schools that I would definitely take advantage of. Worship U from Bethel, or Rick Pino has one called Worship Coach. Maybe I'll come up with them pretty soon,
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is like take advantage of all the practical trainings. But sure, honestly, man, nothing can replace the anointing of the Holy Spirit, and you only get that, and you only learn how to work with that if you hang out with Him and steward the flame.
I'll tell you what, I'm an old recording engineer, so I'm the guy that used to be mixing and then didn't have an anointing effect. And no matter how well, an artist sang in the studio, and it was a Christian record label I was one of the owners of, and I used to tell him, look, if you don't bring the anointing with you, I can't put it in.
It's not on the board.
No, sir, I can put all the reverb you want, all the echo, all the, but anointing?
Yeah.
Haven't quite made one of those yet. So tell me what, you're a father too. How do you balance being a father, husband, and doing what you do, worshiping, traveling, doing this project? How do you manage all that?
Yeah. I'm figuring it out. If I'm honest, I'm figuring it out. Like, especially because I was on staff for about 13 years at my church.
Wow.
About 2 years ago, 1.5, almost 2 years, transitioned off to do itinerant ministry and to do traveling now, which changed all the dynamics because it's different. You're in one place at the same, all that. And then now I'm like all kinds of places all the time.
Sure.
And so we're learning how to balance that. But really, again, intentionality is a big thing, like I was saying earlier. But, like we schedule a date night, we have things in the mornings because services are at night mostly, except for on the weekends. But at night, we're doing services at night. So I got daytimes. So which is it's totally different than like what you would see on a TV show about how families are supposed to run. The dad's got the 9 to 5 and then we hang out at home. We have dinner together. And I don't know. I grew up watching TV shows like this. Yeah. So now I'm fighting an image that Hollywood had told me what it was supposed to be like. Yeah. But the reality is we just make time for what's important. Like yesterday morning, I'm like, hey, I'm going to walk down the street to this little family restaurant, and me and Hunter, my 3-year-old, we're going to eat breakfast together and hang out. You know, different things like that where we're like, my wife and I will have an intentional date night and be like, all right, our parents, their grandparents are going to watch the kids and be like, we out, we're going to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're figuring it out though. You know, it's actually because my schedule is different every week. So I can't just be like, here, this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
We just have to look at the week and go like, okay, this is what we have.
Sure.
And this is what we're going to work with. So, yeah.
Well, my heart is burning for you because you took and told people without telling people that you took a 13-year job and said, you know what, God, I'm going to do what you told me to do.
Yeah.
And that in itself, it's people will say, yes, that's faith. I get it. Yeah. But you don't get it when bills are coming. And that same weekly check or monthly check that you used to get is now, okay, babe, how often did we minister this month? Mm-hmm. You know, and I got to drive and get there. And then did it all meet? How do people support your ministry more and better beyond just tomorrow night?
Yeah, we have, if you go to breakerministries.com, there is actually a way that you can do monthly support. We have some monthly supporters who give monthly. That's like, I'm like, praise the Lord, because it actually really helps. Because especially even going into holidays, it's a little slower on the traveling than it is, you know, say in the middle of the year. Sure. You got summer, so you got like all these camps and retreats and things. You'll be like, come and do worship or preach, you know, whatever.
Sure.
But so the monthly support helps. But you know, the reality is, you coming out, you're getting a CD helps immensely. You know, buying some for your friends, spreading the gospel around like that. Come on.
Yeah.
Those things really help because, like you said, you know, it's like I have actually, so all disclosure, I work part-time with Jeremy Nelson's ministry. Okay. So I do consistently do 2 to 3 nights a week leading worship and ministering. Sure. Which helps kind of make up for, you know, some of the itinerant stuff. Sure. But it ain't going to cover the whole deal. So, you know.
Sir. No, sir.
So we like, the invites have to come and different things. And,
sure.
But the reality is, I mean, if people feel led, I don't like to self-promote. So I won't usually go like, hey, you want me to come to your church? Because the reality is, if their hearts aren't open and they didn't invite and they just do it out of obligation or some weird thing, then it's going to be hard to minister there. Yeah. But if they invite me, then their hearts are already open to what I carry. Sure. And it's going to land, it's like the seed's going to land on good soil. They're going to get blessed. Yeah. I'm going to actually have a good time ministering, you know, and everyone gets blessed in the whole deal. So I really just go by faith and say, God, I tell my intercessors, just pray that doors open. Sure. And we'll believe that God will open the door, because that's literally how I've been able to do anything and everything. Like I said, I first started leading worship because the youth pastor's like, oh, you sing and play guitar, you're going to be our next dude. Sure. And almost every position I've had since then, that was 2001 or 2. Wow. Every position I've done or had all came because the Lord opened the door and I didn't push it open myself. Sure.
Well, I believe that's so. Because, I mean, just what you carry, which is prophetic word, just an amazing, crazy worship for God. And then just your spoken word, to be the power to preach and teach that, I think is awesome. My kids, we were sharing off air that my son, Evan, his knee was healed after you prayed for him. He told me, Dad, when he touched my knee and prayed for me, my knee got hot. And my knee couldn't bend but halfway before he prayed. And after he prayed, I could bend it the whole way. I can jump around. I could run. Didn't have any pain. Yeah. And like we were talking off air, he had been almost a month out of basketball practice and not being able to do PE because his knee was hurting. We had been on ibuprofen for 3 weeks straight. We've been on ice and elevation. Wow. He'd been sleeping in my room with his knee up because he sleeps on a bunk bed. He couldn't climb to the top without the pain. And I didn't want him to, in the middle of the night, if he needed to get up and go somewhere, I didn't want to worry about him trying to get down and hurt it. And he was favoring the leg. Wow. But after that, like I said, the following Monday, we went to the doctor. He climbed 3 flights of steps with his backpack on, no pain, no nothing. The doctors were like, oh, no, his knee is fine. You know, those guys at the doctors, they don't know, like we know it's orthopedics. And what I didn't share was that shadowing they saw on his thigh was just a shadow. He's like called it a birthmark on his bone. He said, it'll fade out, no problem. Wow. And so it was just such an awesome thing for Evan to be able to experience God for himself at such a young age. Yeah. So, like I say, if you know anything about God and you hear this man, Andrew Hopkins, speak, sing, whatever, please support him. Please support him. Andrew, we're going to play another one of your songs. I'm going to keep mindful of the time. What's another one of your songs that you want to have people experience before we go to break?
You know, I wrote a song called You're Better, and it's about the goodness of God. And honestly, we had been studying about the goodness of God,
Sure.
but man, spontaneously, this phrase came out, God, you're better than I thought you were. You're so much better than I thought you were. Wow. And it's like, if I would paint a picture, it's like beyond the clouds of my religion and my religiosity, the sun is still shining. And it was like he parted the clouds to show me that his face is still smiling over me, regardless of what I thought I had to be perfect for him. I had to be good enough. He's still smiling, and he parted the clouds so I could see it. And I just believe that, man, God wants to lift up the countenance of a generation who thought that God was angry with them, to know that he's actually smiling over them. The wrath of God was poured out on Jesus at the cross, so the smile and the goodness of God could get poured out on us.
Wow. Well, I was going to ask you at the end of the show to pray for our listeners, but tell you what, with that word right there, we'll take that to break, and we'll be right back.
Let me stay captivated by your wonders and your love. God, you constantly surprise me. I can never get enough, and I don't understand why you keep on choosing me. I don't understand why you keep on loving me. You're better than I thought you were, so much better than I thought you were. And you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. And you're better than I thought you were, so much better than I thought you were. And you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. I see your face is always on me. Your eyes keep looking into mine, and your goodness overwhelms me, and it's lighting up my life. And I'm so grateful that you keep on choosing me. I'm so grateful that you keep on loving me. You're better than I thought you were, so much better than I thought you were. And you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. You're breaking my box. You're better than I thought you were, so much better than I thought you were. And you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. Oh, you're better than I thought you were, so much better than I thought you were. And you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. Oh, you're better than I thought you were. You're so much better than I thought you were. Yeah, you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. With your goodness, you teach my heart to sing. With your goodness, you teach my heart to sing. I'm free to dream, I'm free to hope, 'cause you opened up my eyes and gave me life. Oh, with your goodness, you teach my heart to sing. With your goodness, oh, you teach my heart to sing. Oh, I'm free to dream, I'm free to hope, 'cause you've opened up my eyes and gave me life. Oh, you're better than I thought you were, so much better than I thought you were. And you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. And you're better than I thought you were, so much better than I thought you were. And you're better than I thought you were, Jesus. It's your goodness and your mercy thought that you were angry. I found out you're smiling over me. I thought that you were angry. I found out you're smiling over me. You better, you better, you better, you better, you better. I thought that you were angry. I found out you're smiling over me. You better, you better, you better than I thought you were. I thought that you were angry. I found out you're smiling over me. Send out your roar, send out your roar. Join in the sound and let the walls fall down. Send out your roar, send out your roar. Join in the sound and let the walls fall down. You are holy. 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 I wanna join with the 24 elders, lay down their crowns before you. I wanna join with the living creatures, singing their endless song of praise. Join it with To him be the glory and dominion forever. To him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. To him be the glory and dominion forever. To him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Well, forever and ever. Amen. All the glory and the honor. Oh, yeah. Oh, to the heavens shake at the sound of your name.
It's been a long time.
I'm back. This is Craig Carlisle, the host of the RZNGMEN show, and I'm back Tuesdays 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on WKBY 1080 AM and WKBY1080.net. Tune in and we'll have real talk about real life.
Hey everyone, my name is Eric Tomlinson with the Tomlinson Group at Rancon Real Estate, where we design the sale of your home around you. With our nationwide network of agents, you and your family are at the center of every decision, conversation, and step of the journey to your next home. From hello to congratulations, selling your home with the Tomlinson Group at Rancon Real Estate is designed to both learn and surpass your expectations. Call me today at 951-970-6727 so we at the Tomlinson Group can begin surpassing your expectations today. We want to work for you.
Does your business need to rank higher on the Google search engine? Do you want everything that your company touches to turn to gold? If you've answered yes to either of those questions, you need to contact Bright Media House. Generating relevant customer leads is critical to increasing sales and growing your business. But figuring out which online sales and social media marketing channel to use and how to use them can be overwhelming, especially when you have a business to run. Digital marketing is something every business owner and marketing manager needs as a part of their strategy. For more information, go to www.brightmediahouse.com or email us at info@brightmediahouse.com.
How do you avoid pitfalls that will disrupt your life? My office is very good with helping families protecting assets, building wealth, college flexible plans, tax-free retirement, and so much more. I am John Treese Wells with World Financial Group, licensed to help million-dollar families, businesses, and everyone in between. You can contact me at 951-757-4202 or email me at jw.nofamilyleftbehind@gmail.com. I'm about your family.